Hey guys, it's Tori and it's time for my July-August Bookopoly TBR. So a couple of quick things before I get started. I have linked down below my playlist for all my Bookopoly TBRs. There are only about 3, I think, before this one. So not a ton, but if you're interested in watching my other ones, especially my introductory video to the Bookopoly board, feel free to look at that. Also for my May-June TBR, one of the prompts I had to fulfill was to read the oldest book on my TBR, which was Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, and unfortunately I did not end up reading that. I just decided I wasn't in the mood for it, and I decided also that I don't think I ever will be. It's not a type of book that I usually would reach for, and I really don't think I'm ever going to read it. I've had it for like 11 years and still have not read it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in actually my family's library, because I think my younger brother, when he's a little older, might enjoy it, and there may come a point where people are reading it on BookTube and say good things about it that get me interested in it again, and I may want to read it then. So it's going to be available for me if I do ever end up wanting to pick it up, but I think I'm gonna get it off my personal shelves for now. But because I didn't read that book, I decided to punish myself by adding an additional prompt onto my TBR, and to do that I did a random number generator, and between 1 and 40, which is how many spaces are on the Bookopoly board, and whichever number it landed on, I would read for that prompt as well. So when we get to the end of the Bookopoly prompts, as I already filmed my rolls for that, just because it's easier that way, you'll see me fulfill that punishment, so to speak, and that will be my last prompt that I'll talk about. So you'll see that again in those clips. So anyway, let's just get into the board. For those of you who are OCD, I'm sorry, the board is crooked in my footage, but I ended up accidentally deleting a previous roll, so it was my second round, so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to leave it the way it is so I don't have to film it again. Also, just keep in mind that I can change any of these choices. These are just my basic choices for the prompts, but because the prompts are pretty open-ended, I'm allowed to change as long as they fulfill the prompts, is how I do it. So anyway, like I said, let's just get into it. So first roll is a 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Adult. Okay, so for the first prompt to read an adult book, this obviously is very open-ended, so I had a lot of choices, but the book I ended up choosing is one that I have an arc of, that I really want to read before October when it comes out, so I can give a review of it and let you guys know my thoughts. So that book is Tsarina by Ellen Alpsten. This follows Catherine the First. I think in my book haul, when I hauled this, I said that it was about Catherine the Great or Catherine the Second. However, someone commented and told me that it's actually about Catherine the First, who I know nothing about. Catherine the Great I at least know a little bit about, but I know nothing about Catherine the First. So I'm extra excited to pick this up, and hopefully I'll be able to do it soon, because I think I'm really going to like this. Round 2. Oh gosh. Another 9. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A historical fantasy. So a historical fantasy, I am a little low on choices for this particular prompt, and because I'm trying to save money, I'm not going to go out and purchase new books, and libraries are still closed, so I can't get it from the library. So I'm going with one that's a little bit of a stretch, but that sort of kind of works. People may argue with me about this being a historical fantasy, but I'm just going to count it because I need to read this book, and it at least sort of works for this. So the book I'm going to read, or actually reread, for this prompt is Circe by Madeline Miller. For my reading goals of 2020, one of them was to reread. I had 4 specific books that I wanted to reread, and this was one of them, and it's the next one I want to pick up. I read The Odyssey recently for the first time all the way through, and I had already read this, but I wanted to reread it after reading The Odyssey to get a little bit deeper into the subject matter and understand it better. This follows the witch Circe from the Odyssey and just her life story, essentially. It's very, very good. Circe is an incredible character. I know, again, this is like taking place in the Greek world, and a lot of people believe like that the Trojan War was real, and that plays sort of a role in this. I mean, it's not necessarily on page, but that's where it starts for the Odyssey, is with Odysseus leaving the Trojan War, and then mythology kind of takes over his story, and so Circe is part of that Greek mythology. So again, it's very much a stretch, but I feel like it's close enough that it'll work. And again, I really need to read this, so I'm really excited to reread this. This was my favorite book of 2018, so it'll be great to revisit it. Okay. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A classic drama. A classic drama was a perfect prompt for this month because, or these 2 months, because I'm planning on participating in Jane Austen July just a little bit, just enough to where I want to read a Jane Austen novel. And the novel I chose for this year is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. This novel I actually began reading back like 5 years ago. I read like half of it and really enjoyed what I was reading, but I ended up getting distracted and not completing it. So I really want to finally complete this novel and get it off my TBR. This story follows a mother and her 2 daughters as the father of their family passes away, and because this woman was a second wife to him, and because they only had daughters between them, he ends up leaving all his money to his son, their stepbrother / stepson. This man and his wife are very unwilling to help his stepmother and his half-sisters, and so they end up moving into this tiny cottage. They're really destitute compared to what they were. So of course the mother is encouraging her daughters to try to find suitable matches that will help to raise their station. I've heard from a lot of people that this is one of their least favorite Jane Austens, but based on my experience of the first half, I really enjoyed it. So I feel like I'm going to like it more than other people tend to, but who knows, maybe now that I'm older I won't love it as much as I loved it when I was younger. I'm really excited to finally finish this book all the way and see what my thoughts are on it. Man, if I keep getting these big numbers, I'm not going to have very many prompts this month, which is fine, I guess. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A community shelf. We have read a book with a male main character. Okay, cool. I have no idea what to read for that, but we'll figure it out. This prompt for a male main character is probably the one I'm most likely to change what I choose because I had so many options of what I wanted to read. I really wanted to do a classic for this challenge just because I've been in a classics mood and this is one prompt that really worked for a classic. So I had a variety of options. The one I'm going to mention is the one I'm most thinking I'm going to read, but I had, like I said, other choices that might actually be the ones I read, but hopefully I'll be able to get to this one because I really want to. And that is Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. This is about Jude, who is a male main character. All I know about it is that there's a lot to do with marriage, that he's unhappy in his marriage. I think he ends up living with a woman he's not married to, and just a lot of society's attitudes towards that situation. I have just been in a really big Hardy mood just within the past few days. I have noticed that every couple months or so I end up really being in the mood for Thomas Hardy. So reaching that point again, and I really hope to pick this up soon because I've heard really good things about it. This is actually his last published novel. After this, he got a lot of backlash from both this book and the book before it, Tess of the D'Urbervilles, because of their themes and the aspects of society they're commenting on. And so, oh, there's a plane. Anyway, so because of that, Thomas Hardy just started writing solely poetry, and so he didn't write any more novels after this, although he lived a while longer, which is so sad to me because I love his novels so much. He just was a man ahead of his time, and so he was writing about things that wouldn't be appreciated until much later. So anyway, but I love Thomas Hardy, and I would love to read this because I really want to see how it compares to Tess of the D'Urbervilles, in my opinion, because Tess of the D'Urbervilles is one of my favorite books of all time, like top 3 favorite books of all time. So definitely excited to read this. And next, possibly last, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A science fiction. Perfect, I know exactly what I can read for that. For a science fiction, this prompt was perfect for what I need to read. I actually want to apply to a scholarship that is based on a book, but the book is very long, so I wanted to get a head start on reading it and was planning on reading it between July and August anyway, so this just worked out so perfectly. And that is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. This is an over 1,000-page book, which I'm still working on Count of Monte Cristo, So this is just gonna be quite an interesting experience because it's so big to be reading both of those over 1,000-page classics, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I know very little about it, but I believe it's set in a dystopian world, and that there's a situation where some of the most influential, important people in this society suddenly disappear, and what happens to this society when those critical people, those foundational people with incredible ideas and who have really made a difference in the society, all are gone. And it sounds very interesting. I know Ayn Rand can be very philosophical at times. I actually read Anthem by her, which is a much, much shorter book, and really enjoyed it. So I feel like I'm going to like this, although I'm not always the most into the philosophical type, like long-winded discussions, but I feel like I'm open to reading it in this just because of the setting and everything about it. I feel like I'm really going to like this. I hope so anyway. And we'll do at least one more roll. Hopefully I don't hit doubles. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A middle grade. Okay, and then the prompt for the last of my regular rolls was middle grade. And for this one, I'm going with a book I've been kind of afraid to pick up, but I think it's time because the 4th book in this series is about to come out in October or something like that. And that is Dragonwatch Master of the Phantom Isle by Brandon Mull. This is the 3rd book in the Dragonwatch series. I've mentioned this before. Earlier this year, I read the first 2 of the series. This is a spin-off series from the Fablehaven series. How many times am I going to say series in this little clip? Sorry. But that was one of my favorite series of my childhood, and this one recently has come out in the past few years, and it's been so fun to revisit these characters and see them again. Fablehaven itself follows these 2 siblings as they are left with their grandparents, who they don't really know as their parents are going on a trip. And they don't really have much to do. The grandparents don't have like any technology in the house or anything like that, so they just kind of wander the grounds. Their grandparents own this really, really huge piece of land, and they're not allowed to really explore all of it, but they're allowed to explore like the yard and things like that. But they start to realize that maybe their grandparents' land is not all that it seems. In fact, it might be a sanctuary for magical creatures, and things go on from there. It's such a fun series with such fun characters. The writing's not always the best, but I still really enjoy it. And this one is following some issues that come in the aftermath of what occurs at the end of that Fablehaven series. The only reason I haven't gotten to this 3rd book yet is because at the end of the 2nd book, there was a cliffhanger, and it involved a trope that really stresses me out. It's not like I hate the trope, but I just don't like it because it stresses me out, if that makes sense. And it's a trope that will carry on into this book and have an influence on what's going on in this book. And so I've just been like, I don't want to be so stressed about it because I just needed to prepare myself. So I think I'm ready, and we're just going to read this, and it will be a nice break since I have a lot of more dense books this month to be able, or these next couple months, to be able to read something a little more lighthearted. Okay, so my punishment for last month is to randomly generate a number between 1 and 40, and whatever I land on, I have to do that prompt as an extra one since I failed on the 1 prompt last month. So on my computer, you can't see it because it's off screen, I have a random number generator set 1 to 40, so we're gonna generate a random number, 23. So let's see what that is. So 1, 10, 20, 1, 2, 3. Ooh, a chance card, fun. Book with a bird on the cover or in the title. So that will be my last challenge. Book with a bird on the cover or in the title. The book I ended up choosing is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This is probably more of a historical fantasy than Circe is, but Circe doesn't have a bird on the cover. So we're going with this one for this. This follows a girl in Russia, I believe, who is, in Russia, who is part of this tiny town where they tell all sorts of stories about this mythology that they believe in. However, her father ends up marrying this woman who really does not believe in that. She's basically a very intense and forceful, like, Christian, I believe. And so she's trying to get rid of any belief in this mythology. However, there are some mythological creatures that the main character can see and interact with that start to invade this town and things go on from there. I've heard great things about this story. I've heard that this first book is pretty slow, which doesn't really bother me. I'm not afraid of slower stories. Sometimes it does affect my enjoyment, but sometimes I end up loving a book that is a little slower. So I'm totally willing to try this, and I really hope I love it as much as other people do. It's been a long time since I've read a whole series that I've just absolutely loved, so I'm excited to get into this one. Anyway, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below some books you're looking forward to reading soon, as well as if you've read any of these and what your thoughts were on them, as I would love to know, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!